This channel's definition of a warrior of war is any man who in the face of extreme adversity and risk still chooses to put a cause, belief, or the lives of others over his own self-interest. These are the men who put their gifts of intelligence, perseverance, and strength to honorable use, and today, one such man who fills that criteria is Charles Herbert Lightoller. Born in Lancashire on March 30th, 1874, the same year as Churchill mind you, Charles Lightoller was seemingly born to navigate the high seas. As soon as he turned 13, the call of adventure was too much for Lightoller to resist, and he quickly picked up an apprenticeship travelling as part of a ship's crew for 4 years. On only his second voyage, he was shipwrecked and stranded on an island, but luckily he was rescued before death. He began to climb the ranks and was promoted to second mate on another voyage after fighting a fire that broke out in a sailing ship's cargo of coal. Lightoller, after this apprenticeship, found himself experimenting with other lifestyles and avenues that didn't involve the Navy for a couple years, but time and time again, he found himself craving to be back on deck, and he therefore decided to ditch his other pursuits and eventually decided to join the White Star Line, who were owner-operators of the Titanic, and became a first officer. While serving his tenure with the company, the unthinkable happened, and as many of us know, on April 14th, 1912, the Titanic hit an iceberg. Although not thinking anything of the hit at first, Lightoller and many of the crew quickly realized the gravity of the situation, and he took charge of loading many of the lifeboats, strictly enforcing the women and children first policy, even pulling his gun out at one point to remove a group of men from a lifeboat. The Titanic eventually sunk, and Lightoller had gone down with it. However, in a stroke of good fortune, when he was being sucked in by the ship's pull, he was spat out when water hit the boilers and created a blast that blew him back to a lifeboat. After surviving the night, a rescue liner finally arrived, and Lightoller's lifeboat was the last to be reached, and he was the last to leave it, making him both the only surviving senior officer and the last Titanic survivor to achieve rescue. Fast forward 2 years later, and despite the Titanic, Lightoller hadn't lost his love for the Navy, or rather couldn't at the advent of World War I. He was initially drafted as an armed merchantman, but after proving himself in battle and rescue operations throughout the war, he was eventually given command of his own Royal Navy destroyer. In a notable incident during his command, Lightoller simply rammed into and sank a German U-boat. Obviously not learning from the Titanic, Lightoller thankfully had enough experience to realize this wouldn't sink their whole ship, although it was close and they had to limp 100 miles back to port for emergency repairs. So, surviving the Titanic in World War I, Lightoller had a lifetime and some full of sea adventures, and was just beginning to enjoy his retirement when the great drama of Dunkirk gripped the nation. At the age of 66, he, his son Roger, and 18-year-old Gerald Ashcroft responded to the Navy's desperate call for help. Traveling on a ship capable of carrying only 21 people, and despite being strafed multiple times by the Luftwaffe, Lightoller and his crew saved 2 men from a burning motor cruiser, pulled 3 Navy men from open seas in Dunkirk, and then took on another 122 men from a sinking Navy ship that had been heavily hit by the Germans. A total of 130 men were saved by Lightoller, with these men packed like sardines for hours on end before reaching the port of Ramsgate and nearly capsizing the ship as they began to shift after hearing the news of their arrival. After Dunkirk, Lightoller once again postponed his well-deserved retirement and continued to serve in England's Home Guard as the threat of an invasion began to loom. Eventually, of course, this passed, and Lightoller was proud to say he survived 2 wars and the Titanic. By then, sadly, Lightoller and his wife had lost 2 sons in the war, the eldest Roger, who was with him during Dunkirk, being killed in a commando raid, and the youngest being shot down as part of the RAF. Charles Lightoller himself survived until 1952, where he died of natural causes at the age of 78, and what a life he lived. Thank you, Charles Lightoller, your sacrifice will never be forgotten. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this one, as I usually don't cover the Navy and feel like they're a little bit underrepresented during the retelling of heroic war stories. Let me know if you have any family who served in the Navy and tell me their stories. I for one have a little bit of a naval history in my family, with my grandfather surviving a kamikaze attack in World War II and my uncle following in his footsteps and captaining ships to this day. So guys, just before you go, if you do want to help support this channel that does get demonetized quite often, then please do check out the Patreon in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.